Battery Bill. Battery Bill. For cameras, computers, cars, or scooters. For trucks, boats, jet skis, remotes. Battery Bill. Battery Bill.
All right, how's it going, everybody? It is episode 61 here on Hawaii Football Now. Jordan Helle, Hunter Hughes, back with you as always. We record this here episode Tuesday morning. It's about 7:53 a.m. Let's get specific here. Set to release it, as always, on Thursday, October 27th. Should be a fun one this week as the University of Hawaii returns home for 3 of their next 4 games after kind of being very sporadic at Ching over the last month and a half. A lot of road games, bye weeks, and things of that nature. Big mahalo to Spectrum Mobile, Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union, and Battery Bill, our sponsors for the pod. Quick opening drive here. We mentioned they return home this weekend, the usual 6 o'clock kickoff time, and we'll get into a whole lot, obviously, of the Colorado State loss coming off of last week. Another heartbreaker for the Bows. It is Paniolo Trophy time, one of 4 competitive trophies that the University of Hawaii, rivalry trophies that the University of Hawaii plays for. It's the only one that they currently possess. As you remember, UH going up and winning the final game of the 2021 season up in Laramie. They have the Paniolo Trophy. They're not going to want to give that up. But I wanted to ask you, Hunter, as a guy who, was part of the program, has played through some of these rivalry games, these trophy games. I think the Paniolo Trophy is one of the cooler ones in all of college football. It is very unique, right? I mean, if you ask mainly anybody across the continent, like what a Paniolo is, I don't know if they'll realize unless they took like a Parker Ranch tour on vacation or something like that. But I think it's pretty cool. Cowboys, Hawaii history, obviously. But what do these mean? Like, are they something that's talked about? Is it kind of more for the fans? Like, what is it from a player's perspective?
It's always a nice additive, thing, especially for away games, because it comes on the plane with you. You want it to be coming on the plane home with you. It's this added thing to a game. And I agree, other than maybe the axe that Minnesota and I think Wisconsin play for. I think they play for that axe, Paul Bunyan's axe or whatever.
That's one of the cooler ones, not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's tough to beat the axe. That's pretty awesome.
Who plays for the Floyd of Rosedale? That pig. It's like Iowa or somebody, right? The Midwest. The Midwest has some weird stuff.
They do.
They play for axes and pigs and jugs and all kinds of stuff.
Is there a trophy for the Iron Bowl or the game, Michigan and Ohio State? Are there trophies for that one?
Just, I think, 365 days of like pure pride and trash talking. I don't know. I don't think they play for trophies.
I can't remember there being one either. And that's kind of my point where, is there a trophy for when we play Fresno?
Not an official one anyway.
I don't think there's
like that on the screwdriver thing, but that's not one of the.
And so that's kind of my point where it is fun. Like, we definitely take note of it. You walk by the trophy case whenever you enter the locker room that's right by the main entrance. And so you kind of walk by and see it every day. But that's kind of the only reason to give any notice to Wyoming other than just another conference opponent. I'm going to be completely honest, because the games that we're really focused on as Hawaii players are Fresno, if Boise, when we play those guys, but we don't like those guys at all. And then obviously BYU, BYU and Fresno are the closest that we have to hot-blooded rivalry, so it's a little bit more from a player's perspective of playing with a little more spirit. But it is always fun to play for something rather than just another notch in the belt. So it's cool to play for a trophy nonetheless.
Yeah, I'm with you. Even as weird as it, because the Hawaii trophies really aren't off the wall, right? The Paniolo Trophy is a cool one. You got the Dick Tomey Memorial Trophy with San Jose State, which is a very fitting tribute. You got the UNLV Trophy, and then the Air Force one, right? None of them are kind of off the wall. But yeah, I'm with you. The school that I went to, our rivalry trophies were a drum that's like 100 years old. Actually, it's more than 100
Nice.
years old now. And a pair of like bronze shoes that has a weird backstory with Whittier College there. It's like small time college football. So those were a little more off the wall, especially the bronze shoes.
I'd add in there the Aloha. The Hawaii Bowl, the pineapple is a cool trophy that we like to play for.
The Vegas trophy has a pineapple involved, right? Doesn't the UNLV trophy have that Island Showdown trophy or whatever it is?
I think they do. I think you're right.
I don't know if it's as nice as the Hawaii Bowl pineapple.
Right.
But it's got to be more durable. It's got to make the trip every year. So that's part of it there. But no, I'm with you. It's a long season. You try to find juice any which way you can. A rivalry game, even if teams are like, not that competitive at a point, it adds a little something. It adds a little incentive. So that should be a lot of fun. And Hawaii will look to hold on to the Paniolo Trophy this week, Saturday. We'll get much more into the matchup with the Cowboys in the second half of today's pod. But before we hit the game time, reminder that Hawaii Football Now is brought to you by Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union. As Hawaii's largest credit union, they are committed to serving individuals and businesses through its 14 branch locations statewide, as well as their convenient digital banking services. As a leader in providing support for the islands, Hawaii USA is committed to strengthening Hawaii's financial wellness and sharing successes with members, local businesses, and the greater community. Be sure to visit hawaiiusafcu.com. All right, game time here. Colorado State 17, Hawaii 13. Another heartbreaker for the Rainbow Warriors as the Rams take the lead on their final possession of the game with less than a minute and a half left. After not leading the entire game, after Hawaii led for most of this contest, they led it 3-0, led it 13-3 at halftime, and then they give up 14 unanswered in the second half, don't score a point in the second half. Offensively, it was pretty dismal in that second half. Colorado State goes on a back-breaking 13-play, 80-yard drive that ate up like almost 8 minutes of the fourth quarter clock. That ended in the game-winning touchdown with 1:28 left in the ball game. I believe they converted one of their 3 fourth-down conversions on that drive. That's something we'll get into here. The Bows now drop to 2-6 overall, 1-2 in the Mountain West. I'll just get it out of the way now because they need to run the table for automatic bowl eligibility at this point.
Right.
Just that's the fact of the matter. Some general thoughts, Hunter, on a game that Hawaii was right in it till the end again. They perform, good enough to win in a lot of ways for the second consecutive road game. I will say that is a little encouraging because at times trips to the Mountain Time Zone, trips to the mainland in general have gone south very fast. But here Hawaii is now 2 conference road games, and they were in it till basically the final play of the game. We can get into some of the numbers here in a second, but some of your general thoughts coming off of this loss.
Man, it's just an absolute bummer, Jordan. With everything that we were hoping and speculating and talking in terms of being in the middle of the pack in the Mountain West, going up against one of the weaker opponents of our conference and then not being able to get it done. It's a bummer, man. It's just this game is pretty telling of what type of a team we are, unfortunately. It's telling of what type of a season this is shaping out to be. And a perfect time, Jordan, for me to remind everyone how bad it was 9-10 months ago, that we have a great coach in store right now with Coach Timmy Chang. He's done phenomenal work in the community this last season. I felt like it was time to add some perspective because, it's not going good for us this year. This game was probably, if not the as big of a blow as New Mexico State, right up there for this season. And I'm kind of already looking forward to next year, man. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, it's I think you're seeing again some of the growth, right? Defensively, I thought they played more than what. Look, you gave up 17 points in the Division I college football game. From a defensive standpoint, you did your job. You did your job, right? For an offense, scored on 3 of their 4 first half possessions again, and then it kind of went south there. But I think, the fact that they're competitive, and again, Nevada and Colorado State among the bottom feeders in the conference this year, especially in their respective divisions. Like, these aren't world beaters. These aren't the teams that are going to finish top of the standings this season in particular. But to be competitive on the road, San Diego State's probably going to be in the mix the way it's looking. So a little credit to the Bulls there and being competitive against a team that probably will finish with a winning record. But to be in these ball games, and look, yeah, you'd love to win them, but as you point out, like, as much as you're not turning the page just yet for the Bulls, as much as you still got 5 games to play, right? And that's a ton of reps for this group. They're building for the future, absolutely. Like, there's a lot of youth on this team. There's a lot of youth at some very key, particularly skill positions, right? On the offensive side of the football, a lot of positions on the defensive side of the football in that backfield in terms of eligibility.
Yeah.
Like, they are building for that. And so to be in these competitive ball games, you're going to learn a lot, right? You're going to learn a lot about your guys. You're going to learn a lot about, hey, what's working, what's not, but you're going to get a ton of meaningful reps that I think, yeah, obviously you'd like to come out on the right end, like against Nevada, but these road games, the San Diego State, Colorado State game, I think you're going to get so much more growth out of that than say the New Mexico State game, right? Where they kind of got boat raced after the first quarter, and you're just sort of licking your wounds, and it can be demoralizing a little bit. But they're in these ball games, and it's a play here, it's a play there, and I'm sure we'll touch on some of these, whether it's dropped balls in the end zone, whether it's jumping off sides on fourth down, on fourth and goal on defense. Like, they really are. They really are just a couple of plays away from winning this football game. Some of the overall numbers, total offense, Colorado State racked up 356 yards of total offense. Hawaii just 257. Hawaii held to 84 yards on the ground, right? That was maybe a little bit of the surprise after the way they had been running the football the last few weeks, really all season with Dedrick Parson. 22 attempts, still averaged 3.8 yards per carry, very respectable. Colorado State, on the other hand, ran for 209 yards on 40 attempts. I think everybody got familiar if you watched the broadcast or listened to the game on ESPN Honolulu. Avery Morrow, 147 yards, and he scored the 2 touchdowns, including the game winner, obviously, for the Rams. Throwing the football, Colorado State only threw for 177, kind of kept that in check. Obviously, the running game did all the damage. And then Hawaii, for the second week in a row, throws for 173 yards. Weird statistical anomaly there for Braden Shager. Not many turnovers in the ball game. Hawaii had the one, and it came basically on the final meaningful snap of the contest, with Shager throwing the interception with about 50 seconds left in the ball game to seal it. Hawaii only 4 penalties for 23 yards, but again, a couple of untimely flags. The other big, I think, overall statistic, Colorado State just 3 of 12 on third down, but they were 3 of 6 on fourth down. So that's basically 4 of 12, right? You're converting at about 50%, trying to keep drives alive. And a large reason why Colorado State held the ball for 35 minutes and 6 seconds. Hawaii only had it for 24 minutes and 15 seconds. So basically 11 more minutes Colorado State had the football, 11 more minutes that UH's defense was on the field. And I think it proved on the final drive of the ball game that just sort of had a cumulative effect and wore them down, and was a big part of why Hawaii ends up losing this ball game. In the second half, Hawaii totaled 38 yards of offense.
Ugh.
Barely had the football. The defense was on the field far too long. And eventually those indicators usually point toward the result, and I think ultimately did.
Yeah. And if we don't get that goal line stand in the first half, it wouldn't have been this close. So we almost, as a defense, had 2 goal line stands against this Colorado State team. Our defense has been fantastic for us. We can't win a whole lot of football games scoring 13 points, Jordan. It's just not going to happen, especially in the Mountain West, which is statistically a little bit higher scoring conference if you look at the group of 5. So yeah, we've got to be better. And it's pretty telling that this team is still struggling to find an identity on offense. Who are we going to be? What type of scheme are we going to commit to? Who are our playmakers and how can we best put them in positions to make explosive plays and then ultimately win us some football games. And you mentioned it earlier about you learn a lot on these tough road games, both from a schematic standpoint, who we are as a team. Your leaders emerge in tough games like this, and our coaches. A lot of these guys, it's their first crack at their positions that they hold right now. They're learning how to run the show as well. So it's, in business, they say there's no such thing as losses. There's only learning opportunities. I think that's a healthy way to look at our team right now, is a lot of learning opportunities. And but I think you're right. The bones are kind of there. You start to see we've got a lot of players with a lot of upside, with years in front of them still, on top of the guys that I know that they're going to get in years to come in recruiting. One of those guys that's screaming off the page is Logan Taylor, coming in for a couple injuries, and it's just been fantastic for us on defense. And then additionally over on offense, even though he didn't get the bulk of the carries, you and I have always been a fan of Tylan Hines and what he's done for us in the running game. So we're going to get many years, hopefully, with both of those guys.
Yeah. We could start with the defense a little more in depth here, because I think obviously that's been the more positive side of the football here.
Sure.
Last week, you mentioned Logan Taylor. The dude was everywhere. He had 16 tackles, 9 of them solo, 1.5 tackles for loss in the ball game. Hawaii as a team, as a unit, 5 tackles for loss. Didn't have any sacks, which could have come in handy at some times. It's the third straight game that Hawaii's defense has held an opponent to 17 points or less. That's the first time since 2009. Like this doesn't happen very often. The unfortunate thing is Hawaii is 1-2 in those games, right? And that'll lead to kind of the offensive conversation in a little bit. But again, the first time in 13 years that Hawaii has held an opponent to less than 17 points or less in 3 consecutive games. This is historic stuff from this defense. And again, they were averaging like 45 points against through the first 5 games of the season through the non-conference. So there's a huge improvement. The 3 stops on 4th down, as you mentioned, basically multiple goal line stands. They had to play 5 plays on that 4th and goal sequence, and ends up after the penalty on 4th down, Colorado State scoring. Panay Pavihi, his usual self, 6 solo tackles, 8 total. Hugh Nelson had another 8 tackle performance. 5 of them solo, broke up a pass. Peter Manuma all over the place once again, 10 tackles. Malik Hausman, 8 tackles. There was some shoddy tackling early on for this Rainbow Warrior team. It got a lot better. I think as the game went on, I believe it was Hausman who ran down Morrow and saved a touchdown early in the ballgame on that first drive where they missed a few tackles and ended up preventing any points from getting on the board. Definitely saved a touchdown, ended up preventing any points from getting on the board. But they gave up a lot on the ground, that no doubt about it. But at the end of the day, the game is getting stops, right? It's stiffening in the red zone. It's forcing field goal attempts. Colorado State kind of refused to do that for much of the game. And so then it's getting off the field on 4th down, which they did at times. And ultimately, the bottom line is how many points do you give up? And they've given up 17 or less for 3 weeks in a row now. And I think that's more than commendable from this defense. And as you pointed out, Hunter, that's good enough. That's you can't ask for much more from this group.
Especially when you don't have huge size on the D line, which we do not have, which is telling that we're going to give up a lot of rushing yards. That's been the scouting report for us since day one, is if you want to score against us, do it on the ground. I've been just intrigued that teams try to test us in the air, because that's not what I would be doing if I was an offensive coordinator against Hawaii. But whether any way you look at it, the defense is doing their job. That they are not the issue right here. Our issue is our inability to score points. And when you look at the stat line with our receivers, 38 yards, 32, 18, 28, 13, 5, that's not telling of a team that's taking shots down the field. And I've been a little disappointed in our, I guess you would say, conservatism in our passing attack. Uh, it's been checkdowns, it's been screens, it's been little things here and there that you hope will open up the big play that we just didn't have this last Saturday.
That was lacking, right? We saw for a couple of weeks, the San Diego State game, the Nevada game, there were some shots over the top. Zion Bowens obviously scoring on some long touchdowns. There just wasn't an explosive play for the University of Hawaii through the passing game this past weekend. We mentioned Braden Shager goes 18 of 30 through the air, 173 yards, a touchdown, and then the interception. And albeit truthfully, he should have had a second touchdown, right? The Jalen Walthall drop on 2nd and goal down there near the end of the second quarter should have been a touchdown. I mean, hit him in the hands. And Hawaii should have been up 17-3 at halftime instead of 13-3 at the break. Dedrick Parson, 15 carries, 71 yards, 4.7 yards per carry. Again, he's getting the job done when he gets his touches. Fewer rushing attempts than we have seen in recent weeks. He did have 6 catches for 29 yards. That's always been a strength of his ability catching the ball out of the backfield, including 2 or 3 of them on that final drive before the pick. Tylan Hines, only 2 runs, 21 yards. The dude's explosive. Probably needs to touch the ball a little bit more. Zion Bowens, Dior Scott, both had 2 catches for 38 yards. Tamatoa Mokiao, Ati Malala, and Caleb Phillips led the team in terms of total receptions. Ati Malala's 3 grabs go for 32 yards. Phillips' 3 grabs go for 13 yards. Remember, he had the touchdown catch down near the goal line. Jalen Walthall, 1 catch. 18 yards in this one. And then Grayson Morgan also had 1 yard, 1 catch for 5 yards, the backup tight end, as we've seen Jordan Murray basically move more or less full-time to wide receiver. And so it's kind of a similar refrain to what we saw earlier in the season, right? They move the football at times. This is an offense that has shown the ability to run the ball effectively, but just not quite resulting in points, not quite resulting in enough consistent drives, because I think, the trend's starting to repeat itself, where the passing game is stronger in the first half, second half, not so good, right? That we saw that even last week, but the running game took over against Nevada. That wasn't the case here this week. Second half, just couldn't get jump started. They had another strong opening drive, which we've seen at times this season, right? Vanderbilt, New Mexico State, even in the games that they got blown out, that opening drive has been a positive one. They go 11 plays, 65 yards, settled for a field goal though, right? At least you put points up on the opening drive of the ball game. That's positive. They once again, second week in a row, they scored 3 of their 4 first half possessions. All 3 scoring drives were 10 plus plays. So a little bit of a grinding aspect to that, right? Not the explosive scoring drive, but hey, you get the touchdown and 2 field goals. You probably feel like you could have put a few more points on the board. That first drive, it looked like it was destined for a touchdown, had to settle. Again, the fourth drive, the final drive before the end of the second quarter, should have had a touchdown. Had a guy open in the end zone, dropped a short touchdown in the end of the first half. It was impressive, I will say, by the special teams unit running that field goal team on and boot through the 3 points with basically the tackle being made at 15 seconds, and they were able to run the team on. I thought that was really impressive. But then here's the second half, Hunter. Second half, 5 drives. And this is what I think has plagued Hawaii far too often. 3 and outs, right? First drive, but second half, 3 and out, 2 yards. Second drive, 3 and out, 7 yards. Next drive, 1 first down, 4 plays, 20 yards. Next drive, 3 and out, they lose 5 yards. And then that leads up to the final possession where they finally relinquish the lead. They get the ball back. They go 4 plays, 14 yards, and an interception to seal the ball game, where they, we're at least kind of with some checkdowns moving the ball down the field a little bit. That adds up to 38 total yards in the second half. Basically 24 before that final drive where they had to get desperate and obviously are trying to go tempo and get the ball down the field. It's I think frustrating for a lot of folks because you juxtapose that with the first half where they go on 3 10-plus play drives. It was an 11-play drive, a 10-play drive, and a 10-play drive. Those 3 scoring drives. And even the drive where they end up punting, I think goes like 6 plays, like 30 yards or something like that. So, okay, you move the ball a little bit, you give it up, but at least you're holding on the football. The defense is off the field. You're not letting them score. You're not turning the ball over. You can live with that. But the 3 and outs where you basically net 4 yards in those 3 drives barely took any time on the clock. You can see why the time of possession was so tilted in Colorado State's favor. And just this wild swing from the first half to the second half in terms of production, in terms of consistency, in terms of just comfort level out there. I don't know. It's got to be fixed. And you're led to believe that, hey, it can be, because you watch the first half and it's like, okay, they're capable of it, right? Yeah. They're not completely inept or anything like that. I don't think that's even part of the question, because you've got playmakers. You've got Brent Shager, who continues to look more comfortable, at least in the first halves of these ball games. I don't know if it's the fact that other teams are adjusting at halftime and then Hawaii's not able to kind of counter that adjustment, or what it is. I don't know if, the halftime gets a little, it's too long. They get whatever it is. I don't know, Hunter, if you've got any ideas, but you just to look at that, and then it kind of blew my mind reviewing the drive chart and how this goes through it, because I really like to look at that, see how momentum builds, how rhythm kind of continues and whatnot, or does not in the case of the Hawaii second half. But it is drastically different after halftime.
Yeah, I don't think you can say that's just another team making adjustments on us. I think I've noticed in the later parts of our games, we kind of shift down into a different kind of conservative style of an offense that is anything but pedal to the metal. And I don't know if we're worried about turning the ball over, or, you know what, I'll say this, Jordan. I feel like this team is a run first type of a team that is trying to figure out how to put the ball in the air. I think that's fair to assess our team as such. Now, when you're not running the ball well, then you put more pressure on your offense. I mean, on the passing game, which it seems like our receivers aren't winning one-on-one matchups. And then 2, whatever quarterback is in there can't deliver it where it needs to go. That's kind of what happens. Throw in there, maybe the offensive line gets a penalty, gets a guy through, gets sacked. That's a tough environment to score some points in. So it's, again, we say it every week. It's a process. We got to trust the process, continue to chip away, try to get better. This is our team. This is our coaching staff. And yeah, if we're not getting it done on the ground, then our measly passing attack really doesn't stand a chance.
Yeah, I think trying to find a way to pair that, right? How do you build what can be a competent passing game, and we've seen it at times, and how does that pair with the run game, which has been good, as you point out, and so trying to figure that out. They didn't have the services of Kuali Nishigaya in the slot. I think that doesn't help, obviously, but we had seen with Bowens back, with Walt Hall emerging, guys of that nature. We didn't see Nick Senecal get too involved in the offense either, but the emergence of some of these guys have been a big deal. And I think it boils down to kind of put it in perspective, 6 points. That's the difference between 3-0 and 1-2 in the conference. 6 points, a 2-point loss at San Diego State and a 4-point loss at Colorado State. It's kind of wild to kind of put it in that perspective, where it's like, yeah, we could be talking about the first place team in the conference at 3-0 if not for basically 2 plays, right? 6 points. It's kind of crazy how thin the margin of error is. And I think at least has to be encouraging for this group. It's like, hey guys, look, we haven't played near our best football, but we're still right in it, right? We're still capable. And I think the fact that they get 3 of their next 4 at home is a chance to really kind of put things together and maybe make a strong run to end the season, whatever that results in.
Yeah, no, I'm completely with you. We're a much better home team than we are an away game, than an away team. We have yet to win on the road this year. We discussed that last week, that if we had any chance of making a run, that we would need to turn that around. There's no reason why we can't get it done against Wyoming. I know we'll get into that in the second half, Jordan, but there's still plenty of time to see what we can do.
And speaking of that second half, we'll take our break now and then come back with that second half, get into the Wyoming matchup. another one that I think for the University of Hawaii is winnable, even though looking like they'll be double-digit point underdogs come Saturday. All right, second half coming up when we bring you back to Hawaii Football Now. It's episode 61.
This is Hawaii Football Now from ESPN Honolulu.
All right, second half time here on episode 61. Jordan Hunter back with you. All right, Hunter, let's get into it quickly. Wyoming coming to town. We already talked about the Paniolo Trophy that's on the line. Hawaii currently in possession. The usual 6 p.m. kickoff. Of course, you can always listen into the action right here on ESPN Honolulu. Hunter will be down there patrolling the sidelines on the broadcast, keeping everybody updated with the Veneri brothers upstairs, calling the action. Cowboys come in as 11-point favorites in this ball game, at least at last check. That might change a little bit by the time this comes out on Thursday. They come in 3-1 in the Mountain West, 5-3 overall, following a 28-14 win over Utah State last week at home. Of course, last year, the most recent meeting between these two, Hawaii 38-14 winners on the road, and what ended up being the final game of the season. It was definitely the final game of the regular season. The bowl game obviously got canceled. It was the final game for all of those guys that ended up transferring out. The final game of the Graham era, arguably the best they looked in the 2 years under head coach Todd Graham. And so in comes Wyoming, obviously in a much more stable kind of position with Craig Bohl, who has been there for a number of years now. Interestingly enough, they also lost a few guys to the transfer portal and went through some similar things that a lot of other Mountain West programs, including Hawaii, not nearly to the extent as Hawaii and Nevada did, and even to Colorado State's extent. But so the Cowboys come to town. Their only losses at Illinois, at BYU, and against San Jose State. They currently sit one game behind Boise State, who's 4-0 in the Mountain Division after the Broncos beat Air Force last week. So, look, Wyoming's a better opponent, I think, than Colorado State for sure, than Nevada for sure, arguably than San Diego State, who Hawaii opened conference play with. But you get them at home, and you know it's an opponent that I don't think is head and shoulders in a different class than Hawaii, in a chance to spring another upset here, where Hawaii 3 weeks in a row has covered as underdogs, for those that pay attention to those kinds of things, and getting maybe 10 plus points might be a nice little something to look at this week as well. But I just get the feeling, Hunter, that the way that they've been playing, the way the defense has been playing, I think they got a shot here for sure.
Definitely. I feel like we have a shot pretty much against anybody in the Mountain West, with exception to Boise at Boise. I don't know if we've ever beat them on the blue turf. So it really just comes down to taking care of the football, scoring points, and the defense doing a halfway decent job. Now, we've gotten that part of the game covered. I feel like we've well established that on this podcast. The other two parts, we need to do our job. We can't throw a pick at the end of the game when we're trying to drive down and make something miraculous happen. I understand you're trying to take shots, but we need to be better than that. I know for the year we are drastically losing the turnover margin. Our defense just hasn't taken the ball away as many times, and our offense has given it away a handful. So in order to get it done this week against Wyoming, we need to I'm just focused on scoring points, Jordan. Really, like, can say all the other things. The main thing I want to see an improvement on is this offense and getting the ball in the end zone.
That's the big thing. That's the big thing, obviously, right? Just trying to be a little more consistent offensively. I will say Wyoming's probably looking at last week and saying, hey, look, we could run on these guys, right? They did run for 341 yards against Utah State. So they're going to come in, and it's another opponent like San Diego State, like Nevada, to an extent, like Colorado State, that run first. And so Hawaii's going to be facing another one. They're going to be tested once again. Titus Swen is their workhorse at running back. By far outpaces everybody in 700 yards through their 8 games so far this season. It's a Craig Bohl coach team. You know what you're going to get, right? He's been there for a number of years now after moving over from North Dakota State. They want to establish the run, multiple sets on offense, serviceable passing game. It's the 27th meeting all time between the Rainbow Warriors and Wyoming. Wyoming home again 15-11 overall advantage. But at least there is a little bit of you know what you're getting, right, with Craig Bowl and his teams. And so, hey, look, they got to stop the run. They don't stop the run, it's going to be a long night. They got to be able to account for multiple personnel groupings. That's something that's going to test your defensive integrity and your discipline, no doubt about that. And then defensively, they're always just kind of sound, right? They're always just kind of very fundamentally forward. And so, as you point out, for this University of Hawaii team, what's the recipe, right? How much of the running game do you rely on? What does that running game approach look like? How does the passing game evolve? Do they get some of these guys back, like a Nishigai and whatnot? And that's going to be the big question mark in trying to see if they can keep pace with this Wyoming squad that isn't putting up video game numbers in terms of point scoring, but they've been very, very solid, very, very solid. As we mentioned, 28-14 last week against Utah State.
Yeah, we're going to need to average at least one score a game. I mean, one score a quarter. We're averaging closer to one score a game, but we need to be more on that side of things. One thing that we do have going for us is that Wyoming's coming a long way from Laramie all the way over here. So it's that is a positive. That they're probably, we record this on Tuesday, they're getting on the plane on Wednesday more than likely. And in the same way that travel is tough on us, it's tough on anybody coming all the way out here. So I'm hoping and praying that lends itself to be an advantage for us because I'll be honest, Jordan, we need anything that we can get our hands on in terms of a competitive advantage at this point. So I'm optimistic, hanging on by a thread optimistically, but who knows what could happen this weekend. Anything can happen when you're playing football.
Yeah, it should be fun. Hopefully people still encouraged. We saw a pretty good crowd out at Ching 2 weeks ago against Nevada. I think we'll see a similar one here against Wyoming. All right, let's get into the comments a little bit here. Our guy, Happy Lee, kind of funny on YouTube. He's left us some comments before. He said, I'll be the first to mention that we beat a Nevada team that beat New Mexico State earlier this year. That was like the first week of the season, I think it was. The team that we lost to. He said, don't know if that was worth mentioning. A lot of ups and downs for some teams, or we're just improving. No, I think it bears mentioning, right? And look, that's college football in a lot of ways. You'll see some of those roundabout right results in a sense, but I think it does bear mentioning just because, to see the improvement from this group. And I do think it is also an indication of the improvement of New Mexico State as well. I think they, under Jared Kill, are really making strides in a big win last week against New Mexico, or was that 2 weeks ago? But they've done well. They're barreling forward. So I'm really impressed there. And then our guy Scott, who always likes to drop his line. So just shout out to you, Scott, as well. Touched on Hunter's little overtime last week with the bazooka, right? The t-shirt cannon gun. He said it looked like it was calibrated for Aloha Stadium. It's funny because they use it at the Rainbow Wahine volleyball games as well, right? And it kind of seemed like they had tinkered with it a little bit. He said hopefully Hawaii can channel that 2018 game when they re-unveiled the run and shoot. That was leading up to the Colorado State game, obviously. Not quite the same offensive output.
No.
Here in 2022, but the bazooka, it needs a little tweaking, just a little bit more, I think.
It does. Unlike the Stan Sheriff, the new T.C. Ching complex, at least the Mackay side of the field, the south side, you don't need to reach the rafters of the Stan Sheriff. You only got about, 13, 14, 15 layers of seats right there. So
yeah, you could throw and reach the top row with those. I mean, it's cooler if it comes out of a t-shirt cannon. Don't get me wrong.
No,
but that's,
speaking of cannon, guys, for those at home, Jordan Helle has a cannon. So he can reach that top level. I don't know about the rest of us, but he definitely can.
Well, I'll volunteer next time. We'll try and get with the cheer squad as they take it around. We'll get the shoulder loose. But yeah, the bazooka, way cooler than anything else. But still might need a little few mechanical tweaks. It's different venues, things of that sort. So
in a similar vein, Jordan and I always talk about this during the game. Raising Cane's has a running competition for fans. Okay. They put someone in a hula hoop on the end zone, and then another fan 30 yards away with, what is it, 5 throws, Jordan, 5 footballs?
Yep.
Okay, 5 attempts to hit him with a pass without the person leaving the hula hoop for a year's supply of Raising Cane's chicken. We've yet to see someone make that catch.
Yeah, I'm rooting for him every time it happens.
Man.
It's like, man, I just, plus it's a year's supply of chicken, man. That's not a bad deal.
I think we need to get our guy Jaron out there, put the camera down for a second, and let him do his thing.
There you go. I like it. Jaron's got a good arm. We've seen him on the baseball field.
Oh yeah.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, I'm with you there. The in-game promotions, folks. That's why you got to go to the game, if nothing else. It's a fun family atmosphere. We'll hope to see you down there on Saturday against Wyoming. All right, a little overtime to get you out of here. Did want to make everybody aware. Next weekend's game on the road at Fresno State. What is that? November 4th, I think. I gotta go check my calendar here. Anyway, the following weekend's game on Saturday. Game time and television station had not been set, right? It was one of those nationally televised games that you kind of get slotted and get picked a week out. We knew it was going to be on one of the Fox networks. It's going to be on FS2, Fox Sports 2, on Spectrum. That's 241, 1241, 4:30 p.m. Hawaii time. So that's 7:30 local time there in Fresno in California. So, kind of a nice later in the day start. You can get your whole Saturday done and go check that out. A little different than the 10 a.m. kickoff against Colorado State this past week. So did want to pass that on again. 4:30 Hawaii time next week, Saturday on FS2, not FS1, not Big Fox, but FS2. So go check that out. Another chance for Hawaii to play on national television in a nice window as well. There's not a whole lot of games going on at that time. And it should be fun for the folks to check out on television or, of course, on ESPN Honolulu as the Veneri brothers. We'll be there in Fresno dodging screwdrivers. Just kidding. All in good fun. But those guys, I'm sure, are looking forward to that. But, of course, this week we got Wyoming coming up. Any final thoughts, Hunter, before we wrap things up?
Well, it's not often that I can gloat on a Bears win, Jordan.
That's right.
We got it done last
the heck out of me.
Patriots.
Handily,
I know. I think New England's in the middle of a quarterback controversy up there. Amazing to see them boo Mac Jones and welcome our Western Kentucky brethren. We played them earlier this year, but Zappy's doing his thing over there. But the Bears handled, man. That was awesome.
I know. I'm in some of those pick'em things, right? And you can go on ESPN 1420 as well. They got theirs. I didn't pick the Bears.
Me neither, bro. No way.
No way was I picking them. But yeah, good for Justin Fields. David Montgomery back healthy as well. Fun to see that. Just giving us a slimmer of hope, and especially in a NFC that is just terrible.
Horrible
across the board.
NFC North.
Bears fans talking themselves in the playoffs right now.
Oh my
Don't do it, Bears fans. Don't do it. You're just going to get let down. But I tell you what, who's not going to let you down? The University of Hawaii football team, because they're battling. And maybe if I can find a win this weekend. Looking forward to seeing you folks down there. Mahalos as always to everybody for tuning in. Big thanks to our guy Jaron on the controls, to you, Hunter, as well, and our sponsors, Spectrum Mobile, Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union, and Battery Bill. We will see everybody next week back here as we recap the Wyoming game. And, of course, look forward to Fresno State as well. It's been Hawaii Football Now. Aloha, everybody.
You've been listening to Hawaii Football Now with Jordan Helle and Hunter Hughes, all from ESPN Honolulu.